morning. Hi, everyone. I'm Mabel, Jong. Thanks for joining us. You're watching WHCC TV live from Washington, D.C. at the World Healthcare Congress. We're going to continue our discussions today with our next guest, Jothi Dugar, who is Chief Information Security Officer at NIH. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Well, you have a special focus at this particular meeting on girls and women becoming more involved in cybersecurity.
Yes.
Why is that of particular interest at this meeting?
One, because there's about 10, the number is negotiable, but there's about 11 to 20% of women in cybersecurity globally right now. And in the healthcare space, that number is probably even lower. So I have a really strong passion for empowering women as well as young girls, because I believe we really have to start at a very young age. Otherwise, it might get a little too late if you start when they get older. But one, because there is a need, and two, just to empower women to take chances and to take risks and to get into fields like this that might seem a little technical at first, but it really does involve the entire person as a whole, which is another passion of mine, to look at things in a holistic point of view.
Why are we still grappling with girls and STEM and trying to get more young women involved in this space? I mean, there's been a lot of data that young girls do become less interested in sort of the hard sciences as they get older. Is that something that we can fix or address better?
I believe we can fix everything or anything. What I've seen so far, I have spoken at elementary schools, even at that level, middle schools, high schools, colleges, and what I found is not a lot of people look at things from a holistic point of view. They look at developing STEM programs, but then if you look at the child's family at home, are the parents encouraging girls as well as boys to not necessarily to be equal per se. It's okay to be different, but then have equal rights, and then push our girls as strongly as we push our boys. If boys make mistakes, just from a psychological point of view, we just encourage them like, hey, pick yourself back up, and then go at it again. If girls make the same mistakes, or the girls feel like, oh, they tried something, maybe it didn't work as well as they thought it would, we just kind of brush them off like, okay, this is not for you. Try something else. Hey, why don't you go into the arts or dances or ballet, things like that. And likewise with boys too. I have 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy, and he's the only boy in the ballet school. And we strongly encourage like, hey, this is for girls only, this is for boys only. So from a family point of view, but as well as from the teacher's point of view as well. There's been lots of studies out there that when girls are involved in STEM and maybe they're not succeeding as well as they wanted to, then even from a teacher's perspective, they tend to not encourage the girls like, hey, try harder, let's help you out with this. They might tend to veer them off into other subjects that they feel like might come easier to them, instead of asking the girls to, hey, like let's see what is it about this that you're not understanding fully. They kind of brush it off as like, well, maybe this is not the best topics for you. Why don't we go into like English or arts or performing arts or music or something like that instead.
Okay, so it's not enough just to create the programs, because there are certainly an increasing number of programs that are geared towards girls, the STEM programs, as you mentioned, but also the follow through and really ensuring that the educators are prepped for that and trained to say the right things and encouragement. Yeah,
and similarly from a cybersecurity perspective, there are a lot of educators or even institutions that are looking for diversity in the workplace, but if women don't apply to the jobs because they have this fear of failure or fear that, hey, I might not be the best fit for this, then it kind of puts the employers at risk too, because they're not getting the ideal list of candidates. They're getting mostly men that are applying, and that also ties into the masculine and feminine psychology. Men, boys, they tend to, if they're 20% qualified for a job, they'll still apply, because there's a 20% chance that they'll get it. For women, just from a psychological point of view, we think, hey, if we're 85% qualified for a job, there's still that, small percentage that we're not qualified, and we won't apply. because we're not 100% confident and we're not 100% qualified. And that really sets us up for failure because we're not willing to take that risk just because there's a small percentage that we don't qualify for.
Okay. Now, it's interesting because at NIH, senior leadership is comprised mostly of women.
Yes,
Okay.
it's a great place to be. So I am the Chief Information Security Officer for the Technology Branch, which is the Center for Information Technology. And my primary goal there is to create a center of excellence for NIH Center of Information Technology to be the center of excellence for technology and cybersecurity for government as well as for the private sector, which is hard to do. But yes, the CIO is a female, the deputy director for CIT is a female, and then me being the CISO also a female. So it's a great place to feel empowered being a woman in technology as well as cyber.
Fantastic. Now, in cybersecurity, healthcare cybersecurity specifically, does that department operate differently from other cybersecurity sections in other corporations, for example?
Yes. Unfortunately, security in the healthcare world, hospitals as well as healthcare organizations, it's slowly rising, the need for cybersecurity, but it's still far from an ideal situation. Mainly because it's hard to incorporate cybersecurity into healthcare medical instruments and medical devices when these instruments and devices are already built, and sometimes they're planted within a person. So in a normal cybersecurity world, like let's say in a DoD environment, you can segregate those particular systems into one room, or it's kind of like a SCIF where it's all top secret instruments, systems in one room, and it's sandboxed in. But you can't tell a person with a pacemaker, oh, you got to sit in this one room, and that's it. That's where you live your life. So it's hard to safeguard that because of all of these IoT, healthcare devices, instruments. IV pumps are now connected to the internet or to the network. So it's more challenging than normal systems, as they say. And also driving the importance of cybersecurity into a clinician's mind. Doctors, nurses, at the NIH with scientists, researchers, they want to their security isn't their top priority every day. They want to find cures for diseases. So there's still this impediment where they think of cybersecurity as kind of a roadblock, or you're preventing me from doing my job. And my goal has been, at least at the NIH, to have them feel empowered to do the right thing. So they don't always have to rely on a CISO or a security office to tell them what to do. Like, don't click on these phishing links. Don't open emails from people you don't know. But to provide them with the security awareness training almost on a weekly basis, so that it's on their minds. So next time they try to do something, maybe they'll pause for a second before they take an action versus kind of a reactive approach.
What should we all keep in mind so as to limit putting ourselves at risk with all of these different functions that these health apps give us now and so forth? I mean, we are putting more and more information out there. Are there any tips or guidance you can provide to keep ourselves less at risk?
So sometimes the basic is key. People still use default passwords, default PIN numbers, or very easy to guess, like 1, 2, 3, 4 type of PIN passwords. We are trying to move away from passwords into more of a two-factor. So if any apps or even Facebook or any social media websites that you use, if they offer that two-factor ability, I would strongly recommend enabling that capability. And a lot of social media and apps really do have that now. But a lot of people disable that because it's easier not to use it. But most of the time, the easier approach isn't always the best approach. So two-factor, using strong passwords, PIN numbers, not using the same for all of your devices and all of your applications, because once they guess one, they can just go laterally and get into all of your systems. And also, if you're a home user, having multiple browsers for different purposes. So I would have one browser for like bank information or any type of information that's somewhat sensitive, and having a totally different browser for everything else, like social media, news, anything of that sort. Because there is a chance if you combine everything into one browser and one of your sites gets compromised, they can jump laterally to your other tabs that are open in the same browser.
Great tip. Thank you, Jothi.
Sure.
And also your first time at the conference.
Yes.
How are you enjoying it so far?
I love the keynote speaker. That's the only one I've seen so far. I believe his name is Marty. So yeah, great points. And there's really a correlation between healthcare and cybersecurity, which is you wouldn't think of, that both are very similar fields. So it's been great to realize that.
Great. Thank you, Jothi, for your
problem.
time.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you for watching. Stay tuned. We have more to come.